Bill, would you please begin by telling us a bit about your professional background and also about RTS, including your board?
Oh, thanks, Doug. My experience is kind of unusual as I deal with my peers in this industry. The first 20 years of my career was increasing levels of responsibility in management and then executive level positions outside the transit world with regional and then national companies. So much so that was on and off a plane almost on a daily basis towards the end of that period of my career. And about a dozen years ago, an opportunity presented itself for me to join local government and spend every night at home and be able to spend more time with my family and wife. And I did that. So I had large geographic responsibility, and then it was all brought home in a political environment, public sector. I found that decisions got made differently in the public sector than they had been for privately held and publicly traded companies. And very interesting dynamics, and began to learn who the local players in the local community were as county budget director, and also served one of my favorite titles, Medicaid czar. The county I'm in, Monroe County, has about $1 billion Medicaid program, and began to deal with large Medicaid providers, state officials, to learn how to better run that program in the local community. But that position got me to learn and have a very good relationship with the local county executive, the mayor, state officials, and really understand how influence gets exerted to get things accomplished. And about 5.5 years ago, joined RTS Regional Transit Service here in Rochester, New York. We have 900 employees I'm responsible for. We cover an 8-county area, about 1.2 million people. 450 buses that we have, 18 million customers each year. So a large geographic area, and many of the local officials that we serve in those 8 counties, I got to know when I was county budget director, and I would give them a call and say, I'm not sure how to balance my budget this year. How are you doing it? So very collegial relationships. And then the largest share of our customer base is in the urban area of Rochester, New York. We're highly rated for poverty. It's not something we're overly proud of, but we have a very significant poverty problem in our local community. And the public transit service is their primary vehicle to get them from home to work, to school, to healthcare, to retail. So work very closely with Mayor Warren in the city administration, as well as now County Executive Cheryl Donalfo and the county administration, serving the local community. We have a terrific reputation locally, and was really selected by the board to be the CEO because of that private sector experience I had. Because one of the unique features of RTS, we've got over 70 relationships with businesses and institutions where we customize what we do so that the residents of our community can get more directly to specific job locations or school locations, and those partners pay us the added cost to serve their specific destinations. So it's a huge impact on the local community. The mindset that we have at RTS mixes that public sector responsibility with a private sector mindset. And then we've got a culture here, a strong performance focus that we're constantly looking to improve on prior year results, improving our reliability, the experience our customers have, and really providing a culture where our tagline is, we make it easy to enjoy the ride. And every decision we make, every meeting we have, every trained employee, it's built into what we do. How is what you're doing making it easier for the customer to enjoy the ride? So it's come full circle with adding responsibility and learning how to execute a vision in the private sector, then starting all over again in the public sector, and now blending those two worlds, if you will, into a public service that's provided with a private sector mindset.
That's a fascinating background. Tell me a bit about the RTS board, will you?
Well, the RTS board is, I do think New York State has it right with the way board members are selected. The local communities we serve, and as I mentioned, there's 8 counties. Each have representatives on the board. Monroe County, where Rochester is located, actually has 7 representatives because of their major population base. But each of the other 7 counties has a representative on the board. They're nominated by their local community, but ultimately approved and appointed by the governor of New York State in concurrence with the state senate. And we've got folks, they're not compensated. There's a lot of ethical requirements they need to meet. So the folks that come on the board really have an interest in public transportation and an interest in improving the community. Our board chairman, Jim Redmond, has been board chair for the last 6 years. He's been my only board chairman. He joined the board in 2004. He does a terrific job in getting the board together, working with me to make sure that as much as we can, issues are understood by everyone. And we have a number of decisions where it's easy for everyone to say yes and be in agreement, and other decisions where the initial recommendation might be controversial. And we continue to have conversations the great majority of time. We have the conversations until there's a consensus where people, board members can say, well, it might not be entirely what I want, but my concerns have been addressed with the direction that we're going. And Chairman Redmond and the other members of the board just invest a lot of personal sweat equity, not just the decisions that get made here, but then also in their local communities to make sure that what RTS is doing maximizes the value of public transit in the local community.
It sounds like you have a pretty positive board culture.
It's a very strong board culture. I think the most recent board member who joined is just been on the board a year. We had a county join recently, county number 8. But the other board members have been on from 6 years. I think the oldest serving one is 14 years at this point. So they enjoy what they're doing. They understand that this is a governance and policy responsibility. They're not supposed to understand logistics and bus procurement, but to make sure that how the taxpayer dollars are spent, they're well invested and we get good value, that the communities they represent are well served, and that how we go about doing things is transparent. It's well communicated amongst board members that the direction that they provide. Let me segue here a little bit on our strategic planning process. We publish our strategic plan. We call it our comprehensive plan each year. It's a 3-year plan with 1-year updates each year. And we'll get started about 9 months before the board has to approve it. A management team will begin working on the strategic plan, doing the SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Department by department, we have an outside facilitator come in and work with us on that. And the executive team then gets to the point about 6 months before the board needs to approve the plan, where we sit down with the board and say, this is what we're seeing. that same facilitator does a SWOT analysis with the board, and the SWOT of the organization and the SWOT of the board are compared to see where there's similarities and differences. And then the strategic initiatives that the executive team is considering are reviewed. The board provides their input and guidance. Very excited about that initiative, push forward. Boy, that one we really don't understand. Would like to understand that better. And so spend the next 60 days making sure we understand it if you want to include it in the plan. And then there'll be other initiatives where they say, boy, that sounds very exciting, not something we think we should be doing at this point in time. So that 60 days before they have to approve it, they're seeing that plan really come together. 30 days before they have to approve it, they get a draft of the document, the budget decisions that have been made to fund it. And so when it's time for them to approve that plan, they can see their fingerprints on it. They can see how they've influenced it. And then we put in what we call our top scorecard, our Transit Operating Performance Scorecard, which are the metrics that will define whether we're successful with that plan or not. And on a quarterly basis, we report that top score to the board, and at every board meeting we give an update on one of the TOPS metrics so they can fully understand how the plan is being measured, whether we're being successful with those measurements, where we have gaps between the goal and performance, the steps that management is taking. So they very much feel their influence on the long-term direction. And I very much appreciate their background, their experience, absolutely invaluable to the success of RTS.
Sounds like you've turned your board members into real owners. They're definitely not an audience for finished plans. They're actually joining with you to shape and create strategy, right?
And this is where Chairman Redmond and other board members, Vice Chairman Paul Battaglia, and some of the committee chairs, we'll have some sidebar conversations where, I'll be told, Bill, I feel like you're getting a little bit ahead of us. Or, gee, I heard us say potato, and now I hear you saying potato. And I want to make sure we get on the same page. And this is where working with 14 different board members, each representing a different constituency, as a CEO, need to listen very carefully, need to understand the board chairman is a peer amongst peers. He's the person I communicate most closely to. But all 14 members are my boss. They all have their hot button issues. And if I get passive in that relationship or move forward in an area that I've forgotten 6 months ago they told me keep them informed about, and I move forward and I don't, we need to have that conversation. They make sure that we do. And so they're good in that they don't go behind my back to the board chair and have my board chair say, geez, you better give this one or that one a call. They'll get a hold of me and say, Bill, you recall, we got together for breakfast about 6 months ago. I told you this was an interest of mine, and now I hear it at a board meeting, and we've not had another conversation. So very much, it's a very candid relationship. It's very real relationships, and they keep me well focused on what I need to do. And I think over time, as a CEO, you learn year by year better and better how to manage your board, how to manage yourself and the relationship with the board, and the importance to make sure that that relationship, that if they're owners, treat them like owners. If you treat them just as if, well, they're representing that community and it's not that important, or I think there's other things more important right now. They will work well to adjust my priorities and make sure. And I don't mean to be stubborn, or I will tell you there have been several times over my time as CEO where I wish I had remembered that sooner rather than after I was reminded.
How much of your time, Bill, would you estimate you devote to governance matters, interacting with the board, planning for the board, thinking about the board, and so on? What percentage would you say on the average?
That's a great question, Doug, and there are times of year where it's more intense, that last 60 days before our strategic plan is approved. It's the majority of my time, 50, 60, 70%, to make sure they understand what they're approving, that it's not, oh, trust me and vote yes. It's, do you see where your input has made a difference in this part of the plan? There's other times where there's state legislation issues that require nearly my full attention, and then the board might be only 10 or 15 or 20%. But if I then slow down and leave it at 10 or 15%, that's where I find too long a gap happens between progress being made on an issue and my communicating back with the board members. So in the slower times, it still needs to be 20 or 25% of my time.
Well, thanks, Bill, for that great overview. Now, I understand that your new RTS Transit Center has been named Project of the Year for 2016 by the American Public Works Association. Tell us something about the center, its unique features, and what really led to this very prestigious award.
Well, it's something that for our organization I'm just extremely excited about. The RTS Transit Center, just by way of background, is the place where just about every bus we have starts and ends from. It's located in our center downtown area. So it's very convenient for folks trying to get to downtown. It's also the way Rochester is designed. There's a lot of radial roads that go off not perpendicular to each other, but almost like spokes in a wheel. Sometimes people say, why does your system operate like that? And I said, because it's the way the roads operate. So it's at a convenient juncture. When we were designing it, I asked the architects and designers to consider this as a place where transportation customers would need to catch their mode of transportation. And they took that, and one of the common first impressions that I get from people that visit to see it is it feels like an airport terminal for bus customers. It has 26 gates, a terrazzo floor with a very beautiful design in it, very high ceilings. Ceiling at the center is 45 foot high.
Whoa.
It's very technology rich. When you walk in, just like at an airport, there's boards at each gate, which bus will be there, what time they're departing. And then when you get to the gate, there's a screen that says, here's the next 3 bus departure times for that route. At the center of the concourse, and the facility is a full city block long, about 450 feet. So in the center, there's customer service desks, more screens that list all the bus departure times, public restrooms, some light vending for snacks or soda. And this time of year, and we're talking spring and summer, this next feature I want to talk about is not that important, but We have 7 miles of water tubing underneath that terrazzo floor. And in the wintertime, when in Rochester we get winter, that's how the facility is heated. So the person who walks in from outside, and if they've walked there and they're cold and their feet are frozen, immediately feel comfort from the warm floor. It works to keep the floor dry. So there's just a lot of little touches like that that make for a great experience. We've got terrific uniformed security that act as customer service reps at each, almost at each gate. We've got about 8 people on staff at all times, plus the customer service staff. There's trip planning monitors, ticket vending machines, and then we have about 30,000 people a day go through there, so it's a very busy place. 11 million customers our first year. It's been very well received and changes the public transit experience from getting on and off a bus at a bus stop to changing your mode of transportation just like you would in an airport, to get off in a climate-controlled facility, have information on when the next bus is leaving, be able to go exactly where you need to go. We also have put in some public areas. There's 60 feet of display space where the local school districts will put their, say, third graders have their artwork up, or professional artists will display their art, so that we can draw in to the facility people who don't normally take the bus. There's nothing more powerful than a third grader saying, hey, mom, dad, aunts, uncles, grandparents, you got to get down to the transit center and see my piece of artwork. It's on a display. 30,000 people a day are seeing it.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And the last, I would call this not an unintended consequence, but we didn't appreciate the consequence of having customers. So the bus that takes me to my office is the Route 38. That always leaves from Gate 8. When we want to make changes to the Route 38, we now go stand at Gate 8 and talk to the people who are getting on the bus to say, hey, you use this route. We're thinking about making these changes. What do you think? And the immediacy of that feedback has really improved the decision-making process for our planning and scheduling departments. And the immediacy of a customer to say, I lost an item, to go to customer service, easier to get lost and found items back, suggestions to be brought into the organization. They're not invisible customers anymore. If we have a bus arrive late at night and drop people off and they can't get home, they're not on a street corner somewhere. They're inside our facility. We've got to work hard to get them home. So it just changes that relationship in a way that it was, I guess, rather than saying unintended, it wasn't foreseen. It was unforeseen, but an invaluable part of our ability to improve the relationships with our customers and make it easier for customers to enjoy the ride.
Sounds like customer service is one of your top values, a core value.
The customer is why we exist. And again, when you're dealing with a population that I mentioned earlier, at high level of poverty, a lot of initiatives to move people from poverty to prosperity. RTS is part of driving them there, pun intended. And these folks, they might be working 2 or 3 jobs. They might be going from school to daycare to a job. Anything we can do towards making that experience easier. Secretary Fox talks about ladders of experience. And when then Acting Director Therese McMillan came for the ribbon cutting of the facility, that's what she spoke about. She saw how this facility really does make it easier for, say, a teenage mother who has to get to daycare and then to a job, to have a facility like this with a family bathroom where she knows if the weather is lousy, her child is taken care of, for a senior citizen to have a bench to sit down and wait at the gate. It's just it is a technology-rich, a lot of customer amenities. We didn't build it to win national awards. We built it for our customers. And when we won a regional award earlier this year, I said, well, that's very nice. Then a few weeks later, I found out the facility was the statewide winner for the American Public Works Association. And the day that they announced, or I received the state award, we were awarded, it was announced we were awarded the national award. So we thought we had something special here, and it's being recognized at the FTA, being recognized as a facility that's very unique, very purposeful, and our customers are telling us we've achieved what we intended to.
Well, congratulations on the prestigious awards. I'm assuming there'll be some kind of APWA ceremony, award ceremony coming up, if it hasn't happened already.
The national conference is in Milwaukee the end of August, and while I'm not going to commit taxpayer funding for RTS to receive the award, we do have individuals involved with the construction and design of the facility that is a conference that they go to, and they will represent RTS to receive the award and thank them for the recognition, and then bring that award here that I can share with our employees and with the contractors that helped build it, to thank them and to share with our board for the vision that they had. Just to touch on that a little bit, the building opened November 2014, but the first conversations about the building happened in 1997. So a long time and a lot of effort we had to take property by eminent domain in a downtown area, which is never an easy process. So our board members, and I think of Commissioner Tom Argist, who leads the commissioners that represent the city of Rochester, but Tom Argist, Karen Pryor, and Barbara Jones all did a great job in working with City Council to get certain agreements taken care of, working with City Council. I think when someone's building a building, the neighbors nearby want it to be as small as possible, and the people building the building want it to be as large as possible. And City Council had to listen to those two stakeholders, and our commissioners did a great job. And then our board, Chairman Jim Redman, and Commissioner Steve Carl and Bob Fisher were the Monroe County commissioners that worked with the county legislature and the county executive to work through concerns that they had. Traffic lights had to be changed, streets had to be rerouted. So it was very much a community conversation over a long period of time. And we engaged the board as partners to influence final decisions so that the outcome that we have would be the best possible outcome we could achieve.
So it sounds like you built a real coalition to locally to bring this project to completion. It wasn't just RTS's project.
It was not just RTS's project, and one of the things, being in the public sector, and I'll let people know this happens in the private sector as well, but in my time here at RTS, I've actually had 4 different mayors in a very short period of time. When I first joined here, the mayor was running with the governor to be lieutenant governor. So shortly after I got here, he left. There was an interim appointment, and then another election for a more permanent appointment. And then at the next election period, 2 years later, someone else, Lovely Warren, came on as mayor. And they each have their senior staff, and so there was a lot of communication happening with their senior staff, and his staff changed to make sure they stayed educated, because we were kind of at that point, we had crossed the top of the hill and we were going downhill pretty fast. And it could have been that someone new came in and said, stop what you're doing, we want to get fully up to speed. And because of the relationships with the elected members of City Council and President Loretta Scott, Councilwoman Elaine Spall, who represents the area where our office is, having those relationships, having the relationships with the city commissioners, talking with those elected officials. There were a couple times we had to slow down, but we never had to stop. And the final decisions that were being made, just share with City Council on an annual basis. We do a presentation to them on what we're doing, but we actually did 3 meetings with City Council that year. One at the beginning of the year, as we would normally do, another to let them know the number of changes that would happen to our system and get their input. And those meetings, the third meeting was as the building was near completion, but before it was open, we invited them in to tour. But all those were coordinated with our board members who represent the city, so that they remained as owners. Our commissioners did. City Council could talk to them offline without needing to ask a more sensitive question of me, more sensitive than they might have wanted to ask, but still needed the answer to. So that process, including our board members and listening to them, allowed all the elected officials to feel good about it. And I won't name all the personalities, but locally, all the personalities that were on our dais for the ribbon cutting, there was someone who said, I'm not sure I've seen all those individuals at the same place at the same time. And it was just a great effort by the board and the team that we had here to be so inclusive. Allowed such a great outcome for the ribbon cutting, and then a great outcome for the national recognition and the day-to-day outcome that our customers are enjoying.
Well, thank you very much, Bill. Folks, you've been hearing from Bill Carpenter, Chief Executive Officer of RTS, the Regional Transit Service, headquartered in Rochester, New York. Really appreciate your time, Bill, and have a great day.
Thank you very much, Doug.